Hey guys, welcome back. This is Devil Cube Tutorials over here with a brand new Cinema 4D tutorial, and this is going to be one of the amazing best tutorials I would have ever done, and that's because it was my first recreation, which came out very well, of one of the motion graphics by Nick Campbell from Grayscale Gorilla. I'll put a link in the description for you to see that, and I'm just going to be showing you my recreation over here so that we can see what we're going to be creating. We're going to be using Cinema 4D and After Effects for the post compositing, taking the renders from Cinema 4D. So let's stop talking and see what we're going to be creating. That is what we're going to be creating. Uh, I'll try to make this video as quick as possible without delaying too much or doing a lot of explanation. It should be pretty simple. So let's get on with it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to my top view, the front view, by pressing F4 on your keyboard, and then we're going to go create a rectangle. Now once we create the rectangle, we want to go and set the height to say something like 150. Actually, let's set that to 130. Say how about 100? Not 10, 100. Let's keep it at 120. Then that looks good. And then we want to go check the rounding, and we want to increase the rounding completely, so we get 60. And I'm going to copy paste this, and I'm going to go and rotate this 90 degrees. So I have something that looks like this. Now what we're going to do is we want to go and we want to make this editable by pressing C on the keyboard, which makes them editable. Okay. So now we have a basic shape. So let's get into our perspective view and see what we have here. So it's a simple two rectangles, and I'm going to go select these two, and I'm going to choose right click, connect objects plus delete, which gives us one spline. The next thing we want to do is we want to go take this extrude nubs and drag the spline inside the extrude nubs. Okay. In the extrude nubs, we want to go to the object and set the movement to 80, and we want to go to caps, choose split cap for the start and end. We want to set steps to 8 and the radius to 13. 8 again, and 13 for the radius. This radius needs to be 13. And let's set the steps to 6, and here the steps to 6 as well. Okay, let's see what we have. Looking good. So once we've done with the modeling of the main element, we want to go and we're going to choose a material. I'm going to set this to complete white, and I'm going to check on reflection, set the brightness to 5, and I'm going to set the texture to Fresnel and set the mix strength to 10. And then I want to copy this material, and I'm going to go to the color, and I'm going to set this to a not so complete black, to say around a grayish like that. And we're going to start applying these materials on this. So I'm going to go here and drop in the white material first, which takes over the whole color for the whole element, main object, the extrude, and I'm going to drop in the second one. So now what we want to do is we want to apply the white texture on the front and on the bevels, but everything else remains the same. So since we have going to be having two caps, so that's one cap and one behind, and front bevel and back bevel, we'll be needing to apply 4 of these white textures. So just take 4 of them and drop it on. We can take this one and put it in the front, and I'm going to select the first one, and I'm going to set that to C1. I'm going to set the second one, I'm going to set that to C2. I'm going to select the third one, I'm going to set that to R1, and I'm going to select the last material, and I'm going to set that to R2. So now as you can see, we have it applied on the front cap. So if I remove the cap, we can see that it goes away. The material for the part goes away. So I'm just going to Control Z that. So now we have it like that. Okay, great. The next thing we want to do is we want to go and do our lighting. So I'm going to be using Grayscale Gorilla's HDRI Studio Pack. So if you don't have this, it's pretty simple. The other way you can do is we can go and choose a sky object, and we can go create a material, and we need to go and check color, specular, go into the luminance channel, and you want to go to the texture and choose the HDRI texture that you want. And we want to apply it on the sky, and you want to go to the sky, right click, Cinema 4D tags, composite tag, and we want to uncheck scene by camera, so it gets disabled from the renderer. So that is if you do not HDRI Studio Pack. But if you do have the HDRI Studio Pack, you can double click the HDRI. And I actually did a lot of trial and error, and a lot of deciding on which HDRI suits the best, and I came up with this one which suits. So we want to go into the studios, bevel reflection.hdr, we want to drop it here, and I want to set the rotation to -135. So what I actually was looking for is this nice looking reflections here on the side. Cool. Okay, so once we're done with that, we want to set up our camera and set up our first scene. So we're going to go and create a camera. I'm just going to look into the camera. Okay, so the first scene is where the logo is coming from the top. So what we're going to do is we're going to move the camera and not the logo. So actually, let me just go here and call this logo. So here in the camera, I'm going to zero out the H and the P. I'm just right clicking on the down arrow mark to zero that out. And I'm going to go to the Z, and I'm going to set that to -1500. And I'm going to go to X, and I'm going to uncheck that. And then I'm going to go to the Y, and I'm going to bring it up like so. I'm actually going to set the P rotation to 20 degrees. And then we want to move this up to say -1100. Okay. Let's actually move this a little bit more up, so -1160. So this is going to be 5 seconds long, the first scene. So we want to go, and since we're using 30 frames per second, we're going to set this to 150 frames. And if you're choosing 25 seconds, we can do 25 into 5. That gives us 125 seconds. So I'm going to be using 150 frames over here. So we want to go here, and we want to go and make a keyframe for the Y position on frame 0, and then we want to go to the frame 150. And we want to bring this down to say something like -670. So now if we hit play, we can see it's slowly coming in. But that's not what we want. We want to go and to our camera, right click, and we want to go choose F curves, and then we want to press Ctrl A to select both the tangents, and then we want to click this button over here, which is the linear button, which makes it linear. So now we have a constant speed. That is what we want. Perfect. So I'm just going to name this camera scene 1. Okay. Next, we want to go and create a copy of this. So let me just make a copy, and I'll be back. Okay. So as you can see here, my project name is tutorial 2. That's for the scene 2. So I'm just going to rename this to scene 2, and we want to go and right click, go to F curve. We want to select this and delete the keyframe. Okay. So the next scene is going to be to 60 frames, that is 2 seconds long, and we want to go into the camera, and we want to add some coordinates over here. So here in the H, we want to set it to -32, and we want to set the P to 27. We want to set the X to 180. Actually, let's set this to -180. My bad. The Y is going to be -380, and the Z is going to be -390. So we have this very close-up look to the logo. So we want to go create a control. So if you by mistake move the scene, If you press Ctrl Z, it will not move the camera angle, but if you press Ctrl Shift Z, it gets back into the original, the previous coordinates that you had set for the camera. So I'm going to make a keyframe here, and I'm going to go to 60 seconds, and I'm going to go move this camera up, up to say around minus 240, and make a keyframe. And again, we want to go linearize these keyframes. So we want to go choose F curves, press Ctrl A. We want to click the linear buttons, and now let's just make a small preview. So this is the second scene. Cool. Next, the HDRI rig is going to be the same. So if we make a quick render, we can see we have these nice reflections here. Okay, so let me just pause the video and come back in scene 3. So here I am in scene 3. So I'm just going to rename this scene 3. And we want to go and delete the keyframe. So right click, show F curves, and we want to delete it and close it up. So the next scene is where we have the logo is coming from the top again, but in a more inclined view. So let's just get the settings for that. So we want to go to our camera. So the duration of this is going to be 3 seconds, so we want to set that to 90 frames, and we want to zero out the H, and we want to set the P to 50 degrees, and we want to zero out the X as well, and we want to set the Z to minus 500, and then we want to go to the Y, and we want to set that to say something around 885. Well, actually, let me actually use the values I used in the original one. So that's going to be minus 1030, and we want to click a stopwatch and make a keyframe, and then, sorry, not the stopwatch, what am I saying? It's not After Effects. Anyways, and then we want to go to the 90th frame, and we want to set the Y to minus 815 and make a keyframe, and then we're going to go to show F curves and Ctrl A and linearize them. So now we have a view that comes probably like this, and if we hit Ctrl R to make a short render, we see this nice bells over here. So that is amazing. So let's go and make our scene 4. So let me be back. Okay, so here we are in scene 4, and this is going to be a little bit different than the other one. So let's go to the camera, and let's just name this to scene 4, and we want to go delete the keyframes. So we're going to go to show F curves, and you're going to click delete to delete the keyframes. And here on the P, we want to set that to 7, and the Z, we want to set that to minus 1500, and the Y, we want to set that to minus 100. Okay, oh, actually let's set this to 100, let's see, minus 100, okay, minus 100. Okay, and in the object tab, we want to set the focal length to 25. Let's try 20. Okay, 25, that looks good. And then we want to go to the content browser, and we want to choose the seamless floor. Okay, and we want to drag that down just until it meets the the base. So we can go into our front view, and we can just place it like that to say minus 215 to give the exact number. Okay, and we want to go to the seamless floor, and we want to hide the background, and we want to go and change the color of the floor gradient. Oops, I let go. Seamless floor. Okay, so this will be 45 for the R, 0 for the G, and 45 again. And we want to apply the same values, and then let's bring this, oops, okay, bring it up over here, and we just want to make this a little bit more darker, and actually we can go and make this a little bit lighter, whatever it is, and we press Ctrl R. This is how it looks, pretty awesome looking. Let's go back here, and this texture, we floored this, we can delete that, and then we will get a directly like a flat edge, and see, this is the floor disk, that material that comes. Okay, so we want a flat edge like the one you can see here. Anyways, okay, so once we're done with that, we're gonna go and do some animation over here. And I said it different because we're gonna be animating the logo this time. So this is gonna be again 60 frames. That's 2 seconds, and let's do that. And you want to go to the start over here, and on the coordinates we want to set this to -20. Okay, and then we want to go to the Y, and we want to increase this up so to around probably 300. Okay, so let's make a keyframe for the Y and for the P, and then we want to go to the last frame. We want to set this to 0, and we want to set the P also to 0. Okay, and again we want to go to the logo. We want to go to show F curves. We want to select them, and we want to make them linear. So now it would look something like this. Okay, now we want to change the color of the logo over here, because when it almost touches the ground, it becomes red in color. So how are we going to do that? It's pretty simple. We want to go into the material over here, and this color we want to create a stopwatch. So set the color to white on frame 45. So we click a stopwatch, and then we want to go to the last frame on the 60th, and we want to set this color to 25 and 25 on the B, and to say around 245 on the red, or actually let's set that to 235. Okay, and then you want to click a stopwatch. So now, as you can see, it slowly transitions into being red. Slowly transitions into being red. Okay. We want to go to the HDRI rig, and we want to set the brightness of this to 45. So let's make it render and see what we get. Let's go to the first frame controller and see what we get. Yeah, so you can change your liking based on the brightness, whatever it is. Okay, so this is the scene 4. Okay, now let me just pause the video and get back with the last scene. Okay, so in scene 5 we want to go and do some crazy stuff here, because we want to create clones and we want to explode this into pieces. So how is that going to happen? So on the disk we want to go we want to go right click, go to simulation, and we want to choose a collider body. Okay, and then we want to go and you want to make this logo editable, and we want to select all this and right click, choose connect objects plus delete. So this is going to be the main logo, and then I'm going to go and set this to say around 250 frames. We want to set that to pretty long, and we want to go and delete the keyframes first of all. So show F curves, and no, this is the color. Okay, so we want to remove that color as well, which we can do later. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so we want to duplicate this, and we want to call this small, and then we want to delete all these tags, and we just want to apply a single material. So we want to duplicate this white material, and we want to have 2 colors, one red and one something blue. Okay, now we want to take the small, and we want to press T, and let's hide this, and actually we want to go and delete all the textures over here on this, and we want to scale it down really big, like really well. So say something like that, around 80. Okay, and then we want to go to MoGraph and choose a cloner object. So we want to take the cloner and we want to drop in this small cube, and I'm gonna go, oh, we were in this material, right? So here in the material we want to go to the color, and we want to go to animation and delete keyframe. We can delete this as well. And here in the color we want to go and choose a completely nicely red color, and we want to say this sets to 40 by 40, and on the reflection we want to set the brightness to 100, and on the mixture we want to set that to 50. Okay, and then I'm going to duplicate this, and we're just going to change the color to a nice blue color. So we're going to apply this material on this mold, and I want to duplicate this, and I'm just going to put it in the cloner again and put this over here. Now we want to clone all these clones onto the main cloner, onto an object which is going to be the main. So on the cloner we want to go to the mode, and we want to set that to object. We want to take the main and we want to drop this over here. So now we can let me just see that we have all these clones that are aligned on the main, but we want it to align on the surface. So now it's like randomly placed. So just let me just get away from this camera, and we can see that it is applied on the clone. If I just put back the main, we can see it is getting stuck onto the cloner. So let me just hide that again. So now what we want to do is let me just save this project. Okay, we want to go to the count, and we want to set that to 500. Okay, now it looks a lot very bunchy. Okay, and just for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to go to the options, and I want to set the level of detail to medium, so we have it renders faster. Okay, actually let's go to the level. You can set that to low, so it reduces the number of clones, but there are actually 500 clones. Now this since we have some clones which are coming through the floor, we want to take the seamless floor, and we just want to drag that down till it covers everything. Okay, great, perfect. Okay, so now let's add some dynamics to this. So on the seamless floor, here in the dynamics tab, we want to go to the bounce and friction, and we want to set that to 70. We want to go to the small object. We want to go to simulation checks, rigid body, and we want to set the same over here. Okay, actually let's go and put this on the cloner, and we want to go to inherit tag, and we want to choose apply tag to chiller, and we want to set this to 70 by 70 as well. Okay, now if I just play the video, we can see it all, it's like sticking around, which you don't want. So we want individual elements, and we want to choose all, and then when we go back and we play it, you can see it is taking some time to render, but it just explodes out like that. Okay, it just like bam. Now the reason that's happening is because it is all like completely stuck together, and it looks pretty cool, but I wanted to explode by giving it a lot of force and energy, and just blast out open. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using an attractor. So we're going to go to MoGraph, Effector, not effect, sorry. We want to go to simulate, let's see, particles, and we want to choose an attractor. So in the attractor, we want to go to the object, and we want to set the strength. So what an attractor actually does, it takes in all the and it pulls everything together. So if we want to reverse that, we want to add a minus sign, and then we want to give it a lot of strength. So I used around 800,000 for the strength, and we want to go to the fall off, and we want to set that to a sphere, and we want to reduce down the fall off, and we want to set the size to 120 and 150. Now let me just get away from the scene, and we want to place it in such a way that we get an even amount of explosion. So on the Z, we want to set that to minus 35, and okay, and on the Y we want to set that to -55. Okay, and one more thing we want to do is we want to go to the cloner and we want to choose render instances on. Okay, so now what we want to do is if we go back over here and we hit play, we can see this just blast, like, you know, it's like extreme, you know, extreme crashing. So there are two things we want to do. We want to press Ctrl D on the keyboard, which takes us to our project settings, and here we have the time scale and the gravity. So here on the gravity, I want to set that to 250, and the time scale I want to set that to 40. So what it does is the time, it slows it down, and also gravity, it reduces the gravity. So now when we hit play, we see that we have all these pieces that are just, you know, like bouncing and going apart. So if I just go to options and set the level of detail to high, and then go back and hit play, we can see that there is a mass amount of blast of energy. But we can see that it's not working right, because we have to go into the dynamic settings over here, and here in in the force mode, we will go and choose include, and we want to put in the attractor. So what it does is it removes the dynamics, the usual dynamics of the pieces that are touching each other, and puts the extractor instead. So now if we hit play, we can see it still gives a lot of blasting. So we can go to the extractor and we can probably reduce that down. Well, it takes a lot of time rendering, so let's probably reduce this down. Well, I'm not able to figure out what I had done in my original video. You get the idea. So probably we want to set this down to say a -3000. Let's go and great. Okay, we can even set that to -8000, and let's make one more render and see what we get. Okay, I'm gonna set this down to say 500. Let me go back and make a play. So it's all about trial and error and getting the right look for it. If I set this down to say around -10, let me see what we get over there. Okay, so one other thing we can do is we can actually hide the attractor, and then when we hit play, we see we have a better animation over here, right? So this is looking up better. So depending on what objects you're using and how many clones you're using and how extreme you want the explosion to be, you could probably change the attractor settings. And so once we are done with that, you want to go and to the cloner, and we want to go to the cache and we want to choose bake object. So what it does, it bakes the complete object. So you can see that our object is very fast. So what it does is it gives us a ready-made blast of all the pieces, so that the system does not have to render it each time again and again. Okay, so the one last thing we want to do is let's just make a render and see what we have. So it looks something like this, and let's see, it has exploded into pieces. Okay, looks like we have a lot of reflections. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here, and here in the reflection, I want to set this down to say probably 20, or exactly let's set that to 40, and choose the same for the blue material and set that to 40, and then let's make a render and see what we get. Yeah, that's looking much better. And if you want to go, oops, not that, we want to go and go to effect and choose ambient occlusion and then make a render. We see we get some nice render, and of course it takes a lot of time, so let me just show you the floor. So we can see these nice shadows on the floor, and we can actually go to the floor and we want to check on reflection, and we want to set the brightness to say something around 4%. That gives it a slight thing. Okay, so the last thing this requires, we want to have some good lighting over here, not just the HDRI. So we're going to go to the content browser, and I'm going to be using Gates Light Kit Pro, and I'm going to choose the linear daylight. Okay, so let's double click that. Let's not actually do that. We want to go and delete this daylight. We want to choose one of the presets or the studios over here, and I'm going to be using this one. Where is that? Yes, the daylight studio over here. Actually, there's we can use this daylight studio here. So let's just open that up, and we want to close this. So we won't be needing all this. We just want to take this, press Ctrl C. We want to get back to our original scene 5, and we want to paste it. Okay, and now let's hit the render, and let's see what we have. For this, just for the sake of fast render, I'm just going to turn off ambient occlusion, and let's make a render. So this is how our render would look like without ambient occlusion. I just made a few changes over here. So I think the global size is all the same. I do not know which changes I made, so you guys can just pause the video and make the changes. So I changed the shadow maps to soft, and we changed the sky density and the resolution, and also the fog brightness and thickness. Okay, so this is without ambient occlusion. So how we want to render this is we want to go here to our render settings, and when we do save, we want to check on alpha channel, and I suggest you guys to do PNG with a 16-bit depth channel. Okay, so let's go to the output, and we want to render each separately, and anti-aliasing we want to set that to best, and okay guys, welcome. So here I am in After Effects. So I won't be doing from scratch, but I will be explaining in detail what I have done in each of the scenes. Great. So first we want to go and make a background, and we're going to create a new layer by pressing Ctrl Y, and we get a background. And then here I've used a gradient. So one of the position points are over here, and the other one is down there. Okay, and so the start color is these values. You could copy down these values, you could pause the video, and the end color is somewhat like that, and it's in a linear or a ramp. And then we will go and put in a okay, not that, let's put on this first, the original render. So let's just set this to half so that we can see it. So this is the original render, okay, the scene 1, and on that we just put a levels adjustment, so to darken up the areas. So you guys can copy down the values and pause the video, and after the levels we put in we duplicated that and brought it down, and I put a directional blur on the sides over here. So directional blur with a direction of 90 and a blur of 200, and I filled it. So let me just hide these two. So this is how the first blur would look like, and then I put in a fill of a blue color with these values, and then I just put a fast blur to blur that out even more with repeat X pixels and a blurriness. So then I put in an optical flares, a simple good optical flare. So let me just remove the fast blur. So if you go to the options, I used I do not know which one, but pretty much it looked really good. Now there are a hell lot of presets which you can use, but I used this one. I do not remember which one, but if you guys can find, good for you. Okay, and we want to change the color of it to this, set the brightness to 60, and we want to bring it down. And then when you put on fast blur, it just blurs up the nice scene and it looks very good. And then we want to add a new adjustment layer with color correction to give it a little bit of contrast. So I added a tint with an tint amount of 20. I did not use curves. And then levels again with these values. And then last thing, I added a vignette. So here on the vignette, I made a mask and set the feather to 225. Okay, let me just, we don't need these two. Okay, so this vignette, so if I just, oh, actually we need a vignette, so Control Z that. Yeah, so we added a fast blur and a levels. Okay, and then we added the vignette. So I did not create a black solid. So once this is done, we are going to the project and we want to copy paste and not duplicate. So we're going to press Ctrl C, Ctrl V, and we get into scene 2. And in scene 2, this is what we have. Okay, so we have the background. Let me just solo that. So the background is, I've used the same colors, but I've set this to radial mode. And if I just zoom out and click on the radial ramp, we can see the positions of the start of the ramp and the end of the ramp. And then the second one is this, the main render, and I duplicated that the same with the same values as the scene 1 and put a directional blur on that. You can see it on the edges over here. And then I put in an optical flares. So I just copy pasted the same optical flares from the scene 1 and changed the position over here. So brought it onto the side, to the corner over here. And then we want an optical flares on the left, so which gives it a bright. So here in options, I just use one of the the nice ones. I don't remember which one though, but a nice blue color one. And I put a fast blur on that to 35 and moved it on to the side over to the top corner over here, top left corner. And then the same color correction that was there in scene 1 and the same vignette that was in scene 1. So that is the end of scene 2. We duplicate that to get us to scene 3. So here we are in scene 3, and let me just solo the background. So in the background we want to put it as same as scene 1, and then the optical flares. Okay, so let's take the main render of scene 3, and then we add the directional blur and the same as scene 1, and then here on we want to choose the optical flares, the same optical flare, and move it onto the center as from scene 1, and the one which we used on the left on scene 2, we want that over here on top in the center. Okay, so we want to make sure that in scene 2 and scene 3 we want this optical flare to be in between this one, the main render, and the blur render. Okay, and then the same vignette and the color correction, which gives us this. And next on scene 4 is where we have our amazing blasts. So let's look into this a bit deeper. So here we are. So in the first set we have the logo that comes down, and then it get cuts off, and then it explodes, and then once it explodes, yeah, it falls down. Okay, so the vignette and the color correction is going to be the same, and these 3 renders are also going to be the same. Okay, so the only difference here is the optical flares over here. So here the background, let's just hold the background, and the same background as scene 1 to as scene 1. Okay, so we put our first optical flare over here on the bottom. So if I put this on, we can see it. Okay, and we want to set keyframes for this. So if I hit U on the keyboard, the brightness. So on frame 115, we want to set a brightness to 100, and on frame 2 seconds we want to set that to say pump it up really good. So pump it really good, and we also want to move it up. Okay, move the optical flare up, and then slowly at frame say around frame 3 seconds we want to set that down to 0. So we want to set the blending mode to add for these two. Make sure we do not forget that. Okay, then let's add on these as well. Okay, now we want to add another optical flare that is on the top, which starts when this explosion happens. So on this frame we want an optical flare over here. So if we hit U on the keyboard, we don't we want to set the optical flares but not give it any any keyframes. So in the options we just have a simple optical flare over here, simple decent optical flare, and what actually happens is the brightness of the optical flare here takes the data from the optical flares on the bottom. So okay, and then we have the big blast, and then we can see this nice optical flare on the top. Okay, and the scene ends. So and then we want to go to our main, and we're going to set in all our scenes one by one, and the explosion, and then we fade it away and put in our text. Okay, so pretty cool. So we just fade it in slowly, and then it fades away in the end. And one last thing we want to do is we want to choose make an adjustment layer on top of everything, and we want to choose the real smart motion blur and set the blur amount to 0.5 as default. So that is pretty much it for the tutorial, guys. I know it was pretty long and really helpful to you guys. Learn a lot of new stuff and amazing animation here. So thank you very much for sticking around and watching, and please do comment on what you think about this tutorial, and see you guys in a future tutorial. Till then, bye bye.